So with that, I'll give you Dr. Robert Vodnoy and today's program.
So it's great to see all of you, some of you again. And today our special guest is Victoria Bond, who's a wonderful composer and conductor and educator, lecturer, and author. And we're just going to have a conversation about her music and her career. And we'll allow some time, play some excerpts for you, and then we'll hopefully have time for some questions from you all too. So, Victoria.
Great. I don't want to ignore people on this side of the room rather than. Great.
Okay, so we've known of each other for 30 plus years, but this is actually, this morning is the first time we've actually
met.
So, I guess I'd like to start by asking you to kind of give us some of your origin story, because I know we have one thing in common, which is both of us studied piano from our mothers. That's how we both started. So why don't you take it from there?
Thank you, Bob, and welcome everyone. It's such a beautiful library, and I'm delighted to see so many people here on a gorgeous day. I mean, if we had weather like this in New York, believe me, no one would be indoors, but you're used to having this every day. People go to New York for the weather, right? At any rate, thank you, Bob. And origin story, briefly, both of my parents were musicians. My father was a doctor as well as a professional singer, and my mother was a pianist. My grandparents were both, on both sides, were musicians, so I was stuck. That was it. My fate was determined when I was born, and people said, well, when did you start music? And I said, prenatally. My mother was giving concerts when I was in utero, and she had a very auspicious career as a pianist. She won the Liszt competition, went to Hungary, studied with Bartók, and the rest is history. Played with the Chicago Symphony when she was 10 years old. So yeah, it was a hard act to follow, which is why I'm not a pianist. My father had a beautiful singing voice, so I started out as a singer. And my parents, both being professional musicians, said, well, it's fine that you want to be a composer, but you have to have a performing instrument. So I assumed it was going to be voice and composition. And my role model there was Samuel Barber, who was both a wonderful composer, as you know, and also had a beautiful singing voice. But one summer, I was in Aspen, Colorado, studying with Maria Stoddard and Jenny Turrell, and my friends, my school friend's older brother was there as assistant conductor. And he said, well, if you're planning to be a singer, you're going to be doing opera, and you should know what the conductor does. And I thought, well, that's a little far-fetched, but yeah, okay. He said, I have never taught conducting before, but I am going to start this year, and this summer, in Aspen, Colorado, and I think you should study with me. And so I did. And that was Leonard Slatkin. So I had a very good teacher to begin with. And when I came back, I realized this was really almost a better double for me than singing and composing. To be a conductor and composer gave me a picture of the broader of the whole score. Whereas a singer, well, singers, I don't know, are there any singers or former singers in the audience? Well, a singer's perspective is yada, 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 and then I sing. Whereas a conductor, gets the bird's eye view of the whole score, and I thought that was very useful. So when I came back to Los Angeles, which is where I was living, my mother, as I said, being a professional musician, knew a lot of musicians in the LA area, and one of them was the conductor of the Senior Citizens Orchestra of Los Angeles. And my mother arranged with him to have me conduct a rehearsal. And I had never conducted a big orchestra before, and I remember it was the Schubert Unfinished Symphony. I had it memorized, and I got up on the podium and I was shaking like a leaf. I had never done this before, and there were all these people out there expecting me to do something. And I started conducting, and it was like there was someone inside of me who knew exactly what to do. And it was an amazing feeling which I have never forgotten. It was like, okay, you take charge. And this inner person took charge. I evidently did a good rehearsal because I don't remember anything about that. I just remember that moment. And people came up to me afterwards and they said, you know, you're talented, you ought to consider this. And of course there were not any women conductors to use as role models at that time. If they were not well known. And so that became my second career, or simultaneous career with composing. And I went to Juilliard. I thought I could have a double major, but they didn't have double majors, so I started out as a composition major and then conducting. My first job was a very highly visible one with the Pittsburgh Symphony. I was Exxon Arts Endowment conductor with the Pittsburgh Symphony. This is in the days when Exxon was flush before the Valdez incident. And so as a conductor, and Bob can verify this, you get a real hands-on experience of what it is to be part of an orchestra's life. First of all, you get to know musicians, you get to know the literature. I say I was my own composer in residence for all those years, so it was really valuable. I was always first and foremost a composer, but when I graduated from Juilliard and got this high-profile job, I had hardly any time to compose. A conductor's life is like 24/7. You're either rehearsing the orchestra, conducting a performance, studying a score, or flying. And that's it. So that's the brief overview of my origin.
That's a great story. So you've written, is it 8 operas? So your experience as your ability as a singer really helps with that. Yeah, I'm actually the reverse of you. I actually auditioned at Juilliard with Hugo Wiesel and was admitted to the composition program, but what I really wanted to do is conductor. For me, composition was what I could do as an undergraduate, like to get to a conducting program. So I ended up going to the University of Hartford as a composition major, and then eventually to Indiana University for a doctorate in conducting. So, well, let's see. Let's jump ahead to Anne Frank's Tree, because that's a good story. We have a little music to play. So, on the Chamber Orchestra's concert tomorrow night, we're going to do the second performance and Florida premiere of a work that Victoria wrote based on words by Anne Frank. And I'm going to tell you this several times, but I'll tell it for you right now. I thought it was mine. Yeah. I was supposed to say that. Yes, so if you want to go to the concert, you can go to my orchestra's website, Chamber Orchestra Sarasota.org, and discount code for the tickets is Orchestra 5. So if you go to purchase a ticket, it's a discount I wanted to extend to all of you wonderful supporters of the Sarasota Music Archive. So you can come hear the concert tomorrow. So, Anne Frank's Tree. There it is, and tell us a little bit about it.
I am a tree hugger from way back. I'm in awe of the plant world. And when I read Anne Frank's diary as a teenager and found out that the chestnut tree that grew outside her window had incredible significance to her. She, of course, was sequestered in this attic and could not go outside. And so her only touch with the outside world and with nature was this beautiful tree. And she talks about it in her diary. She speaks about it in all the different seasons. And one of the thoughts was that anyone who can experience something like this and nature cannot be sad. So many pieces that have been written about Anne Frank focus on the tragedy of her life, the end of her life. But I wanted to write something that talked about her sense of hopefulness. And of course, we all know the quote about, after all of this, she still believed that people were good. And I thought that that was such a remarkable thing in the face of the horror that came, that I wanted to focus on that, and in particular, on the tree. The other amazing thing about this tree was that after Anne was murdered, the tree itself started to die, and people took cuttings, samples from the tree, and planted saplings all over the world. There's one at the United Nations, there's one at the Indianapolis Children's Museum. I dare say there's probably one in Sarasota, though I don't know for sure, but they're all over. And so this tree is a living memory of her. So I wanted to paint musically a portrait of the tree. And I've done this in all the different seasons, from the seed, the tree as just a seed, to springtime and summer and fall, and then the tree dies in the fall, or maybe it's in the winter. But then there is a renaissance, a resurgence of the tree as the saplings are taken from it and as it grows and lives and flourishes today. So that is basically the outline of the piece.
So you selected the quotes yourself?
Yes.
Great, and you touched on something which I think is really important, which is that, so the piece is 7 brief sections, or not really movements, but sections. And after a couple of prologue movements, then there are 4 movements that are each of the 4 seasons. So it certainly touches on all these 4 seasons, although no musical relationship at all. And then an epilogue. So let's play a little of it.
This is from a live performance, so you hear people walking in. This is the seed in the ground, sort of struggling to find the light.
Nearly every morning I go up to the attic to blow the stuffy air out of my lungs. From my favorite spot on the floor, I look up at the blue sky and the bare chestnut tree, on whose branches little raindrops shine, appearing like silver and at the seagulls and other birds as they glide on the wind. As long as this exists, I thought, and I may live to see it. This sunshine, the cloudless skies, while this lasts, I cannot be unhappy. Not too hot and not too cold, with occasional light showers. Our chestnut tree is in leaf, and here and there you can already see a few small blossoms. Leaves and is even more beautiful than last year.
Well, if you want to hear the rest of it, you gotta come to the concert. Yeah. So I'm going to take a little question here. So for me studying it as a conductor,
Yes.
the first thing that I was very aware of is the little musical cells, like little seeds, and how they blossom and branch out and become bigger themes. So,
Exactly. As I say, I'm in awe of the plant world, and it has been my model as far as building something. The way an entire tree can be contained within a tiny little seed. So that is my modus operandi. Having a musical cell or motif is very intrinsic to that.
so the other thing I noticed, to see whether if I'm wrong or right, is when I look at a piece that written the way yours is written, one of the things I start doing right away is I start saying, okay, so chromatic saturation, when are we going to get the last of the 12 notes? When is the 12th note going to show up? And the piece starts on an E, so I was hot to trot to find where the B flat was going to be. And it's in a structurally very important place, as I recall, and also the E flat. So they come at important beginnings of, is that how you thought of it?
Well, I say there are two ways of looking at a piece. One of them is the ant view, if you're crawling from one place to another, and the other is the eagle view, where you look at it, where you can see the whole thing, almost like a picture from beginning to end. And I had a piece of very important advice from a wonderful playwright by the name of Marcia Norman when I was writing an opera called Mrs. President. And she said, the first thing you should ask yourself is, how does it end? I thought, oh, okay. So that is really what I was thinking of, is if you have an idea of the ending, then you know where you're going. It's sort of like a map. You know, you may take different turns getting there, but you know where you're going. So in terms of structure, that is basically it.
Right. And so it does begin on an E and ends on E major, and sort of the apex of the arc in the middle is where the point of furthest remove. So
This is music talk.
music talk. Sorry, put you all to sleep. Okay. All right. Well, good. So I love this piece, and so thank you for writing it, and I'm looking forward to performing it. We're going to actually start rehearsing it this afternoon. So what's our next piece? Is it Thinking Like a Mountain? Okay, so Aldo, oh yeah, yes, Leonard stuck in my head. Aldo Leopold. So tell us a little bit about this piece. I think this is a very beautiful piece.
Well, as I say, I'm a tree hugger from way back, and Aldo Leopold was an important American environmentalist. And he wrote an essay. Well, first of all, he wrote a book called A Sand County Almanac. And that book has been a favorite of environmentalists ever since he wrote it. And one of the essays in that book is called Thinking Like a Mountain. Now, how does a mountain think? Well, it has to do with deer and with the predator, the top predator, which is the wolf. And if the top predator is eliminated from the picture, then the deer population multiplies, then it grazes all of the vegetation, and the soil washes down, and there's no more life to the mountain. It's just rock. And I thought this, first of all, reading the essay is a moment of epiphany for Aldo Leopold, because he started out as somebody who liked to hunt. And for hunters, the wolf was their enemy because they wanted to have more deer to hunt. So he and his hunting buddies were on a hunting expedition, and they saw a group of wolves, and they shot them all. And he went down to examine what they had done, and he saw that it had been, I always start to cry when I say this, so forgive me. He saw it had been a mother wolf and all of her cubs. And he said, like I said, it chokes me up. He said he saw the green fire dying in her eyes. And that was the moment of epiphany. And that changed him from being somebody who used nature to being somebody who worked to make sure that the natural world was as intact. Of course, you live in Florida, so you know what I mean. As intact as is humanly possible right now, which is getting less and less, unfortunately, these days. So this was an essay that touched me deeply. And now the performance that you're going to hear and see is from a concert that I conducted with the Shanghai Symphony. And I will tell you right now, the narrator, who is Chinese, is very difficult to understand. So I don't know if technically we can put the subtitles on. Sometimes you're able to do that. and that would be very helpful because the essay is so beautiful, and you may have difficulty understanding her. I mean, she does speak English. She starts out speaking Chinese, but she does speak English, and it's a little hard to understand. But it was an exciting performance, and this was, by the way, jointly commissioned by several orchestras, among them the Shanghai Symphony.
See, I can give a cue.
Oh, and by the way, I love wolves because they get together to sing. Isn't that wonderful?
各位听众，接下来将为大家演奏的曲名叫《像山一样的思考》。这首曲子是由这位女作曲家自己亲自谱曲的，是在全球的首演。所以呢，这首曲子在演奏的过程中间呢，我将用英语向大家讲述一个故事。这个故事告诉大家应该如何保护狼群，从而保护自然界的整个生态平衡。Wild things, and some who cannot. Like winds and sunsets, wild things were taken for granted until progress began to do away with them. For us of the minority, the opportunity to see these is more important than to do away with them. For us of the minority, the opportunity to see these is more important than television. And the chance to find a pet flower is a right as inalienable as free speech. We abuse land because we regard it as a commodity belonging to us. When we see land as a community to which we belong, we may begin to use it with love and respect. Perhaps such a shift of values can be achieved by reappraising things unnatural, tame, and confined in terms of things natural, wild, and free. echoes from rim rock to rim rock, rolls down the mountain and fades into the far blackness of the night. It is an outburst of wild, defiant sorrow and of contempt for all the adversities of the world. Every living thing pays heed to that call. To the deer, it is a reminder of the way of all flesh. To the pine, a forecast of midnight scuffles and of blood upon the snow. To the coyote, a promise of gleanings to come. To the cowman, a threat of running at the back. To the hunter, a challenge of fang against bullets. Yet behind these obvious and immediate hopes and fears, there lies a deeper meaning, known only to the mountain itself. Only the mountain has lived long enough to listen objectively to the howl of a wolf. Those unable to decipher the hidden meaning know nevertheless that it is there, for it is felt in all wolf country and distinguishes that country from all other lands. It tingles in the spine of all who see a wolf by night or who scan their tracks by day. Only the inageable tyro can fail to sense the presence or absence of wolves, or the fact that mountains have a secret opinion about them. My own conviction on this score dates from the day I saw a wolf die.
Great. Okay, so the next piece we want to look at is bridges. And again, we have this funny connection because I also wrote a piece called Bridges. And this game was called Moving Bridges because it's about one of those train bridges that turns when you have to go through the channel and then the tracks swing back. So tell us a little bit about this one.
Well, this was commissioned by a member of the Chicago Symphony, a clarinetist by the name of John Ye, who is Chinese American. And he had a group that involved two Western instruments, clarinet and bass clarinet, and two Chinese instruments, erhu and pipa. And so we were talking about a piece that bridged the two cultures, Chinese and American. And I thought that was a great idea. And the more I thought about it, I thought, why don't I base it on actual bridges? So the erhu and the pipa, if you're not familiar with the way they sound, remind me a lot of American banjo and fiddle. So I thought, why not write a country and western piece using banjo and fiddle, erhu and pipa? And so the first movement is called Railroad Trestle Bridge, and that's probably all we'll have a chance to listen to. So this is erhu and pipa. In the original, I think, do we have the orchestral or the original? I'm not sure which one will come up, but at any rate, it was first written for this quartet and then later orchestrated. So I'm not sure which version you're going to hear. And if it's orchestrated, you won't hear banjo and fiddle, you won't hear the erhu and pipa, but the final outcome in the orchestral colors of what this piece is. But the rhythm of the train is very much there.
Tell us what the other, there's 4 other bridges, right?
Right. The second bridge is called the Stone Bridge over a reflecting pool in Suzhou, China. And it's based on a very famous Chinese folk song called Mo Li Hua, or Jasmine Flower. And the third bridge is the Golden Gate Bridge, and that's based on a Joan Baez song. And the fourth bridge is Da Brooklyn Bridge, and that is based on bebop music from the 1950s. And in that particular one, there was a wonderful double meaning to the word bridges, because in jazz pieces there is the chorus and then there is a connecting section called the bridge. And so I based it on the bridge of I Got Rhythm, George Gershwin's song, which I'm sure you all know. So that had a different, additional meaning to the word bridges. And then the last movement, which is why it is now an orchestral piece, was commissioned by the Michigan Orchestra for their bridge, the Mackinac Bridge, which is the largest suspension bridge, and that is based on the American folk song, The Water is Wide.
Okay, so let's see. Last piece we're going to talk about is Soul of a Nation, right? And yeah, I think we'll probably leave a few minutes at the end for questions. So tell us, this has some interesting connections both to Jefferson and to Corelli, right? Okay.
Well, as a violinist, you know, one of the most well-known pieces of Corelli is a piece called La Folia. Now, what a lot of people may not realize is that Thomas Jefferson, in addition to his gazillion other aspects of expertise, also was a violinist. He didn't play publicly, but he played for his own enjoyment, and in his library was this work of Corelli called La Folia. I have worked on a number of pieces for narrator and orchestra with a very wonderful, both medical doctor and historical researcher, and his name is Dr. Miles Lee. And we decided, well, let me back up a little bit. I have always loved the work, A Lincoln Portrait, and I felt that the music really gave those wonderful words of Carl Sandburg, of Lincoln's words, an additional emotional oomph. And I thought this is an excellent way of having the text understood, because as you all know, those of you who love opera, as I do, very often when a text is sung, it's not necessarily completely understandable. And yet when somebody narrates, it is. And so I thought this is an excellent way of having the text understood and yet giving it the emotional underpinnings that make it that much more powerful. So we started a whole series of presidential portraits, starting with George Washington, and this was the second one, Thomas Jefferson. And since he played the violin, of course, there was going to be a violin soloist, plus the narrator, plus string orchestra.
Wistful notes from his violin filled the room, while outside the driven snow pelted Monticello's parlor windows. But storms no longer touched Thomas Jefferson. In a rumpled brown coat, too short for his tall frame, a red waistcoat, corduroy breeches, and old slippers down at the heels, His silhouette swayed before the blazing fire. His bow stroked the strings, seeking solace from the elements, the world's stage, and the infirmities of advancing years. Music, he said, is the favorite passion of my soul. The whole of my life has been a war with my natural taste, feelings, and wishes. Domestic life and literary pursuits were my first and latest inclinations. Yet, there he stood, the reluctant warrior, the architect, the Declaration of American Independence. Not been born with saddles on their backs, nor a favored few booted and spurred ready to ride them. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Really beautiful piece of story. Anne Frank's Tree tomorrow night, First Presbyterian Church, 7:30 p.m. Our narrator is a senior from Booker High School named Alexa Sharp. And it's going to be I think you'll be really pleased. It's going to be a beautiful performance. The program opens with work by Erich Korngold, his suite from Much Ado About Nothing, and concludes with Mendelssohn Violin Concerto with our own George Maxman, who lives here in Bradenton, is a wonderful violinist, new faculty member at New College of Florida. And Orchestra 5, if you want to go, just go online, get a ticket, enter the discount code. So we've got about 5 minutes left, and I'd like to give you the opportunity to ask some questions. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'd like to know, who was the narrator on that last piece?
Thank you so much for asking. Yes, that was Henry Fogel, who some of you may know was the general manager of the Chicago Symphony, and as Bob told me before that, Albany? Albany. Yeah, that gorgeous radio voice. Yeah, he was just fabulous. So this was done in Chicago, and he was the narrator.
Yes, ma'am.
In Thinking Like a Mountain, the video that goes to that play in Shanghai while you were playing the piece, or was that added on YouTube? How did that come together?
Yes, that was done by Blue Ridge Public Television. At the time, I was music director of the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra, and so the Blue Ridge Public Television station made a video, including clips, as you saw, from Shanghai, as well as videos of wolves.
Yes, ma'am.
When do you get into your most creative mood? Do you keep paper by your bed? Do you wake up at 3 in the morning and jot things down?
Another great question. Oh, thank you so much. I get my best ideas when I am walking. I am an inveterate walker, and I try and take a walk every single day. And I always get my best ideas, not when I'm near a piano, not when I'm near a pencil or a computer or any of those things, but when I'm out in nature taking a walk. So that is my sketch pad. And unlike Beethoven, I don't have a pocket with a paper and pencil in it. I try and remember and not take walks that are going to take me too many hours. So. But thanks, that's a great question.
Yes, in the back.
You seem to write music that accompanies text. The text exists first, and then the music comes.
This is always the question with opera, right? What comes first, the music or the words? In this particular case, I worked, as I said, with Dr. Miles Lee on the narration. And like any good opera composer, the composer is very much involved with the text. If you ever have a chance to read Verdi's letters to his various librettists, you will see how adamant he was about this works, this doesn't work, please add that, please take that away. So they're kind of done in conjunction. We talk about the subject matter. Miles would send me his version of the narration. I wrote back my comments, or we called, or we met. So it's very much a collaboration of both of those art forms.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I wanted to know, how did this collaboration start between you and
Well, yeah. So Victoria and I have, oddly enough, though today is the first time we've actually, I don't know, I believe that we met 35 years ago at a League of American Orchestras conference, but I'm not sure. But, so we both have common roots in Indiana. I was born in South Bend, and I spent my summers in Indiana, where I have another orchestra, besides the Chamber Orchestra of Sarasota. And so I saw in the news that Victoria had written this piece, and it caught my eye because it was premiered by the Indianapolis Chamber Orchestra. So two things caught my eye: Chamber Orchestra, I have Chamber Orchestra, and Indianapolis. So I checked out the piece, liked the piece right away. So then I also looked at the program that they did in Indianapolis, and they did this piece, Victoria's piece, and the Mendelssohn Concerto, and I wanted to do another performance with George Maxwell. But I picked a different piece for the first piece. I picked this Korngold work because I particularly like Erich Korngold, and this is also written for chamber orchestra, so it suited the program very much. And it actually starts out very strong, kind of jovial, and I think Korngold was 20 years old when he wrote it, so it's very youthful work too. So that's how it started. I reached out to Victoria, and that was the genesis of it. Another question? Yes, ma'am.
With all that you do you still sing at all?
Well, I have gone from being a soprano to being a baritone. So yes, I do sing, but in a lower key. Not professionally, just for my own edification, and if I'm writing something vocal, I like to try it out on vocal cords.
Okay, well, I think that brings us to the end of today's program. So,